If you're in the market for a large hatchback, these are the three models you should be considering. The Maruti Suzuki Baleno has been a sales sensation right from day one, and in fact only recently crossed the 4 lakh sales milestone in India. The Hyundai i20 is a huge seller in its own right and was in the news earlier this year when Hyundai brought in the facelifted version of the car. The Honda Jazz unfortunately hasn't sold to its potential, but Honda has given it a mild update and a few more features as well. Our focus today will be on the petrol automatic versions of the three cars. We'll be talking about what's good, what's bad, and which one makes the most sense. A word in about looks first. Each of these cars is just under 4 meters long, but you sure wouldn't mistake one for the other. Even Honda isn't calling this update of the Jazz a facelift because there's simply not much new. The space-efficient quasi-MPV shape remains, and the only real changes on the outside are chrome door handles and LED wing lights at the back. Forget projector headlamps, even daytime running lights have been given a miss, and that is a shame. The i20, in contrast, got a more substantial visual refresh earlier this year. The grille has grown a size or two larger, the wheels are of a new design, and the new tailgate has worked its bit to freshen up the rear end as well. The Hyundai remains an elegant hatchback in look. There's nothing new on the Baleno since the last time you saw it. It's a big hatchback crafted with soft lines and is a neat looker. And it's also the only one of the three automatics that can be had with 16-inch rims. Let's hop into the cabins. We'll begin with the Honda Jazz. When the Jazz was launched, the automatic version was not available in top spec form. The good news is the updated Jazz gets the VX trim for the CVT automatic as well. So there are a lot more goodies in the cabin, but the main talking point is Honda's new DigiPad 2.0 infotainment system. There's Android Auto, Apple CarPlay and onboard navigation. It really does its bit to bring the Jazz's cabin to the present. Also new to the Jazz is a front center armrest, but honestly it's too low to be of much use, and the thick A-pillar remains a bother at crossroads. There is, however, good bolstering from the front seats, the cabin has lots of storage, and fit and finish is largely good. But all is not perfect in the Jazz. Remember the magic seats, the ones that used to flip, fold, contort just to create more luggage room in the cabin? Well, they've been done away with on the 2018 model. What's also disappointing to see are these small headrests that really don't offer much by way of safety. Things that remain on the positive side of the books is just the sheer amount of cabin space. Now the front seat is set to my position, so you can imagine that there is a lot of space. So a family will easily be happy in here. The i20 has its share of hits and misses as well. Hyundai hasn't launched the i20 CVT in top spec Asta O form, which means you do have to live with a few compromises when it comes to equipment and features. The very first one, when you enter the car, no push button start. You'll have to make do with a manual key. It's also a far tighter cabin than the other two cars, and some might find the front seats a touch too soft as well. Where the i20 excels is in cabin quality. Also nice is the 7-inch touchscreen system with Android Auto, Apple CarPlay and MirrorLink, and navigation too. Auto climate control is part of the kit as well. The i20 does have some tricks up its sleeve for the rear seat passengers as well, such as the air conditioner for the back. But where it does lose out, and quite comprehensively so, to the others is in space. As you can tell, it's comfortable, but it doesn't have that sense of space that you get in either the Baleno or the Jazz. The rising window line and fixed headrests are also a sore point. Baleno buyers have other compromises in store. The Baleno might be Maruti's most upmarket hatchback, but the cabin is not what you'd call premium even by class standards. A lot of the larger surfaces are hard and a bit scratchy even, and a lot of the plastics are finished in black, the seats are black, and the net effect is that the cabin does tend to look a bit gloomy at times. The Baleno does offer comfortable seating at the front with its large seats, visibility all round is adequate, and there's also a reasonably nice 7-inch infotainment system. Like the Jazz, the Baleno also has acres and acres of room. Just look at the space at my disposal. It really is spacious enough to humble some larger mid-size sedans. The Baleno is the only car to get the safety of adjustable rear headrests. It's also the only car with ISOFIX child seat mounts at the rear. Dual airbags and ABS with EBD are standard fit on all versions of the three cars, but there are a few differences when talking features on the top spec trims. While the Jazz is the only car with cruise control and paddle shifters, the i20 is the only one with a rear aircon vent, while the Baleno is the only one with projector headlamps and an automatic adjusting internal rear view mirror. What is a big disappointment is the i20's lack of rear wash wipe on the Auto. At 354 litres, the Jazz has the largest boot. It's also the easiest to load into and has the best shape, giving the most flexibility in terms of how you can place your luggage. The Baleno comes in second with 339 litres of luggage room and is also the only one to offer a 60-40 split folding rear seat. The i20 has the smallest boot with 285 litres on offer. That's all there is to know about space, comfort and practicality. Let's get to how these cars are to drive. Each of these cars comes with a 1.2-litre petrol engine mated to a CVT gearbox. In case you're wondering, this engine-gearbox combo is new to the i20 that was formerly sold in auto form with a 1.4-litre petrol engine mated to a torque converter auto. The switch to a smaller engine has helped bring prices down, but how is the new i20 auto to drive? The i20 might have the quietest of the three engines, but it's not the quietest of the three cars. And that's to do with the characteristics of its CVT gearbox. In normal driving, when you're keeping up with the flow of traffic and at part throttle, not an issue. But when you press down slightly harder on the accelerator, the built-in revs is far quicker than the built-in speed, and the engine tends to sound really strained. And the build of speed itself is not that great. There is some sort of a workaround. There are no paddle shifters on the i20, but you do have the option to switch between the 6 steps of the CVT gearbox via the gear lever, and it does add some bit more involvement in the driving experience. The Honda Jazz CVT gets no mechanical changes with the update, so the driving experience remains the same as before. The Jazz's CVT is well in tune with the characteristics of the 1.2-litre engine. Progress right from start is quite smooth, and the rubber band effect is also reasonably well contained. This is not a fast car per se, but you won't be disappointed by the performance either. There is something though to keep boy racers engaged. Of course, the coolest bit about the Jazz CVT remains the paddle shifters. Yes, you can switch between the 7 steps of the CVT gearbox. It is quite responsive to manual inputs. The system will override if you try to do something foolish. You will be tempted to use it every now and then. The Baleno is the only car that weighs in under the ton, and that lightweight has its advantages in the way it drives. The Baleno CVT is easily the most eager of the line. It's quick to build speed and feels the most responsive across the rev range. There is that CVT rubber band effect that we've spoken about already, but performance-wise, you'll be best taken care of in the Baleno. Our performance numbers reveal the Baleno to be the quickest and by a considerable margin. Some might be disappointed to learn, however, that there's no option to manually shift gears. The Baleno CVT comes with a low mode which helps when you're climbing hills or when you want maximum engine braking effect, and there's also this S button which activates sport mode. Sport mode doesn't do all that much for performance, but it does keep the engine on the boil, so when you want to make that quick overtake, it does come handy. Aside from the performance, the Baleno also strengthens its case by being the most efficient. The ARAI certified fuel efficiency of the Baleno is 21.4 kpl, that of the Jazz is 19 kpl, while the i20 has been certified with 17.4 kpl. Over to the other aspects of the driving experience. Time to talk ride and handling. The Jazz rides with a hint of firmness, and you feel that most in town. But on the positive side, when you are driving faster, say out on a highway, you get that extra sense of security with a car that feels really sure-footed and confidence-inspiring. The i20 has the exact opposite characteristics when compared to the Jazz. The i20 does well for itself, delivering a very good and pliant low-speed ride. It absorbs the bumps and potholes quite well at low speeds. But when you up the pace, say when you're out on the highway, it doesn't feel as confidence-inspiring as it should. The feel from the steering isn't that great, and handling in general is a bit soggy. It's the Baleno that strikes the best suspension balance. The Baleno suspension is absorbent in town, and honestly you won't have much reason to complain with the way it drives out on the highway as well. Yes, this is a light car, but straight line stability is quite good. What does take away from the experience is the steering wheel. The return to center is inadequate, there's little feedback, and you just can't get that sense of connect with the car. So that's what the three cars are like. Time to make some choices. The Hyundai i20 facelift that tops off at 8.22 lakh rupees has its strengths in its quality interiors and comfortable low-speed ride. But as a package, the i20 CVT doesn't quite come together as well as its manual siblings. Performance is okay, and you'll have to make your peace with the CVT gearbox's characteristics. That the Hyundai also misses a few features makes it harder to recommend readily. It's a far closer contest between the Honda Jazz and Maruti Suzuki Baleno. The Jazz has the nicer interior, it's pleasant to drive, and in general is a very likable car. However, priced at 8.99 lakh rupees, the fully loaded Jazz VX is a touch too pricey. You do get paddle shifters and a superior infotainment system for the money. Honestly, budget no constraint, the Jazz is the car we'd recommend. That said, you can't overlook the Baleno that's around 56,000 rupees cheaper and still gets a bit more by way of features. The Baleno is also the peppier car and more fuel efficient, and for what it's worth also promises a more premium buying experience thanks to the Nexa dealerships it's retailed from. Factor in everything, and it's the Baleno that takes your rupee further and gives you more car for the money. For most, that'll be reason enough to go for the Maruti.